Okay, so because we want you to love our talk, we're going to get some endorphins flowing. So there's chocolate that's going to be passed out. There's a bag at the end of every row, so help yourself and dig in.
What chocolate did you bring, Deb? No, you can tell me.
It's the Jane Goodall milk and the cherry almond dark.
All right, so the cherry almond dark is like loaded with antioxidants. So as you're eating it, you'll actually get younger during the course of the talk. I also wanted to thank the organizers for this. Sissing rocks. You guys did a great job, so thank you, and thank you very much. You know, I can't see any of you, so I have no idea if you're liking the chocolate or not. So if you feel compelled to yell something out as you try it, just have at it. So my name's Joe, and I started Theo with Debra's help about 5 years ago. And the way that I got started, I was in my early 20s, and I was a conservation volunteer in Central America. And I bought this beat-up old sailboat with a buddy of mine, and we decided to go have an adventure in the Caribbean. And after doing that for a little while, decided that maybe it was a good idea for us to do something meaningful with our lives. So I volunteered on my very first day at this tiny little conservation foundation. They said, I want you to go with these guys and harvest some cocoa. And they were indigenous Mayans, and they gave us these sacks with shoulder straps that were old car seat belts and a shotgun, and off we went. And now I had no idea how cocoa grew, or and I thought, the shotgun, do you shoot it? I mean, I'm not really sure how this all happens. Anyway, so off into the bush we went, and you can sort of imagine, you know, there we are in this rainforest with these huge, tall trees and giant buttresses. It was like Dr. Seuss or something, with howler monkeys and incredible birds. And, you know, the pods, and you'll see pictures in a minute, but they're like a cross between a football and a pumpkin. And my job was to chase, it was pretty hilly, but my job was to chase the pods down the hill. So they would cut the pods off the tree, and I would chase them and collect them. And that was my very first day in the chocolate industry. I think I've come a little bit further since then. But so after getting the pods, I would go and chase more pods, and I went to reach for one, and there was this huge snake, and I was very curious. And going right where I was reaching, and I asked Chapin, the guy who was sort of in charge, I said, what kind of snake is that? And he just said, get the gun, boy, get the gun. And then I knew what the gun was for. So anyway, after hunting the snake for a little while, it did meet its maker. It was very dangerous. It was territorial, and these guys worked there every day. We went and finished our job harvesting the cocoa and scooping the seeds that are covered with this beautiful sweet mucilage out of the pods. And as we were doing this, the guys were sucking on the seeds, and I asked if it was okay. And the flavor of the pulp, and maybe some of you have tried that if you've ever been to a cocoa farm, is absolutely delicious. I mean, it's really, and I couldn't believe it. Up until then, all I knew was that chocolate was like Halloween candy. And at that moment, I realized it was this incredible adventure. The tree is absolutely magical, and every single day, farmers like these guys are out harvesting cocoa. But I'm going to show you a picture of the very moment I actually really did fall in love with chocolate, which was long before the rainforest. And now, you know, and seriously, you know, this might be, does anybody know ding-dongs or ring-dings, any of this, right? So I think that's what this is, although I was having an insulin rush. I really don't remember exactly what was going on. And but that's really all I knew chocolate was this sweet, brown, cheap commodity. I mean, that's, you know, and that's all the relationship we have to it. And so for years I had no idea. And I know this picture is actually, if my mother sees this, she'll be a little embarrassed, because we were, you know, growing up very good Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So of course there is a table full of booze in the back. And we didn't have a lot of money, so there's no furniture because we had to buy the booze. But no, that's not true. That's not true. Mom, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We were getting ready for a party. But anyway, so after doing this for a while, working with farmers as a volunteer, and I've worked with farmers throughout Africa and Latin America, and I've seen a lot, and I have a lot of stories to tell. I got into the cocoa industry and worked in the industry for a while, but really wanted to create a company that had heart and soul, and that was actually trying to create commerce in a way that everybody won, where nobody really was harmed, and where we can prove that nobody's harmed, being transparent. So this is our idea of what we want Theo to be, which is where the farmers are healthy and happy, they have hope for the future, that the planet is healthy, that they're stewarding, that we're making an incredible product. And I have to say, at the end of the day, without having an amazing product, nothing else really matters. Because you'll buy it once if it says organic or fair trade or some other good cause, but you won't buy it a second time if you don't love it. And of course, you are the key link. Consumers are the people who change the world, and that we have an opportunity as a company to really make an impact. Now, I'm going to introduce Debra, who's going to go through this. And Debra and I got married almost 20 years ago, and we've been divorced almost as long. Yeah, so there's a story there.
Theo is a reality TV show. That's what I like to say. So, I think I didn't want to do that, actually. Sorry. I'm going to go back to our logo. Okay, so it seems like in today's world, financially successful businesses all come at the expense of something, right? They come at the expense of the environment. They come at the expense of innocent people. But as Joe was saying at Theo, we really believe that something else is possible. We actually believe we can make something that people really, really want, and we can do it in a way where not only is no one hurt, but everyone involved in the process actually benefits. So in the case of what we do, that means from the rainforest ecosystem all the way through to consumers like yourselves who are now hopefully sitting, I can't see, but sitting, enjoying Theo chocolate bars. How's the chocolate? Yay! Okay, good. That's what I wanted to hear. Joe likes to refer to this as enlightened capitalism. You can think about it as profitability with principles, or more simply, I like to think about it as doing good while doing well. And at Theo, we believe that the two are really inextricably linked. We also believe that all businesses really need to go in this direction if we're going to continue to support life on this planet. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the business case behind this for our company and tell you how we managed to pull this off at Theo Chocolate. There's our pretty factory building in Fremont. Hopefully some of you have been there. I'm going to create a little bit of the context for you so you understand a little bit more about the industry in which we're working. So the cocoa industry trades about 3 million tons of cocoa annually. Of that, Theo buys about 300 tons. That's 0.01%. Okay, so we're a tiny company in a very large global industry. But even as a tiny company, we've actually been able to be fairly disruptive. So within the United States, okay, there are about 15 true chocolate makers. This is a really important distinction in the chocolate industry because there are makers and there are melters. Although there are hundreds and hundreds of brands on the shelf, there are only about 15 companies that actually make chocolate from the cocoa bean and take it all the way through to the finished product that consumers eat. Of that elite group of about 15 true chocolate makers, most of the companies are very large conglomerates like ADM, Cargill, Hershey's. And Theo, of that elite group of about 15, is the only organic chocolate company and the only fair trade certified bean-to-bar chocolate company. I didn't expect that. Thank you. So what that means is that we've set a whole new standard for behavior. And we've made an unprecedented commitment to actually making world-class chocolate using sustainable practices. And through the act of doing that, we've actually been able to illuminate some of the more questionable practices of our competitors. Because the cocoa industry is really ugly. There's a tremendous amount of exploitation of both the planet and farmers, and I think Joe is going to talk a little bit more about that later. So now let's talk a little bit about sourcing and origin and what bean to bar actually means. This is our friend David in Panama, and he's actually kneeling beside a cocoa tree, and those pod-shaped fruits that you see are actually where chocolate comes from. So what Theo does, what bean to bar means to us, is that we actually work very, very closely with farmers at origin, and origin for us refers to the countries where cacao grows. Cacao grows 20 degrees north and south of the equator in the humid tropical rainforest. So we work very closely with farmers to actually provide them with the education that they need and the resources and the tools that they need to grow quality cacao. Most farmers have little or no education. Most chocolate farmers have never tasted a chocolate bar. I can't say that without getting emotional. And most chocolate farmers actually have no idea what happens to the beans after they leave their farm. Joe and I were in Tanzania in February meeting with about 150 farmers, and we were able to feed them their first taste of chocolate along with all their kids, which was really amazing. But we said to them, do you know what the beans are used for? Do you know what happens to them when they leave the farm? And blank stares from every one of them. They have no idea, total disconnect. But they said to us, please tell us. So we do that. We do that not only because it's the right thing to do, we also do it because it's good business. It's a good business decision for us. If these farmers are happy and thriving, as Joe said, then we have greater capacity in our supply chain, right? Our supply chain's shored up. We need farmers who actually understand what we're looking at the other end when we're sourcing, when we're doing cut tests on beans to look for quality. They need to understand what we're going to be looking for, and most farmers have no idea. So that educational component is a huge part of our mission. So what happens is, that, my friends, is what you're eating. What happens is, once the pods are ripe, the farmers harvest them. They cut them open, and you can actually see the outlines of the cocoa seeds inside that sweet white fruit that Joe was talking about earlier. So they actually scoop all that stuff out, and it undergoes a natural fermentation process, and the fermentation process actually kills the cotyledon inside the seed. And then they're dried in the sun or on drying racks, and then they're transformed into what we know and love as cocoa beans. You can actually see the shape of them. So those are actually what those look like once they've been fermented and dried. And once they're fermented and dried, they're actually shoveled into sacks, and they're sent to us at our factory. And then once they get to our factory, there's a lot of time and a lot of food science and a lot of really cool machines that actually go into making chocolate. And if you come and take one of our factory tours, we actually do them 7 days a week, we'll tell you all about that. The factory tours are also a really important part of our educational mission. You're looking at, on the left, our ball roaster, and on the right, our winnower. That's our roasting room. So what happens at the factory is we're able to impact quality because we control all of our own manufacturing. This is really, really critical because it means that we're actually sourcing all of the ingredients that go into our product. So we source everything organically. We source everything fair trade when it's applicable, and we source as locally as possible. But what this means also is that we know the real value of every supplier in our supply chain. In the economic equation that goes into creating Theo Chocolate, we understand the value of the real value, and we value appropriately every single supplier, from the cherry grower to the hazelnut grower to the farmers to the printer who prints our labels. And that's a really, really important factor because it means that we maintain our integrity on the supply side, on the sourcing side, and on the manufacturing side. The other really important competitive advantage that controlling our manufacturing gives us is it allows us to be extremely nimble and very responsive to market changes and market trends. If we're going to do good in the world, we need resources, right? We need to make money. Theo is not a nonprofit. feels like that sometimes, but it's not a nonprofit. And last year, in the recession, we were actually able to conceive, design, and launch the bar line that you're looking at right now. It's we decided to launch a bar line that was more broadly accessible in terms of flavor profiles, and that also addressed consumer price sensitivities. And this bar line really saved our necks. I kid you not, in what probably would have been an absolutely devastating year for us, as it was for so many other small and large companies all around us, this bar line became our anchor in the market. We grew 36% last year, and we achieved profitability for the first time in the middle of the deepest recession the country's seen in a very long time. Yeah. So we managed to do all that while preserving our integrity, while staying true to our principles. We're able to do good while doing well. And now I'm going to pass it back to Joe.
Is that right? Okay. I was saying we're out of time. Are you guys okay? All right. So I'll clock through this at a reasonable pace. So for us, we need to have a business, as Debra was saying, that's profitable, because without it, and I think Ben said it really well earlier, you're not sustainable. And a large part of what it really means to us to be socially responsible is to create commerce, and an opportunity for farmers. The average cocoa farmer around the world earns less than $1 a day for their entire family. Most of their children, or a lot of the children of cocoa farming families, are malnourished. And I don't know if you've encountered malnourished people, but it's not so much these distended bellies, but it's the look in their eye, because they didn't get the nutrition they needed for their brains to function properly. And without that, there's no opportunity, even if they had access to education, to do better. So by creating commerce, we're actually doing something really special on the farm for farming families that allows them to have hope. And it's really about having hope for the future, that tomorrow can be better than it is today. And so that's why, to me, this is really a consumer movement. We need people to understand, to ask questions, to hold everyone accountable, to look for transparency in supply chains, and to know where their food comes from, certainly where everything else does. But at the end of the day, this should be a fun exercise. It's chocolate, for Christ's sake. This is fun, right? Don't you want to have something that is delicious, that you can feel good about where it comes from, and have faith that the people who are actually providing it are doing the right thing? We're accountable for this. One of the people we work with is Jane Goodall, who Debra and I both think is a remarkable woman. And her mission is a lifelong mission that I can only hope I have the energy at her age to actually aspire to. Her level of what she does 360 days a year to educate people and to help have a positive impact on the world is amazing. But at the end of the day, it's each of us in the small decisions that we make all day long that can really have that impact. And so when we come from a place of love and joy, we have a greater opportunity to really affect change. Chocolate should be a luxury that we all enjoy, but not the kind of luxury that is so rare and so special that you can't touch it, that farmers can't try it. This is the first time this woman in Tanzania ever tried chocolate. And she's been growing this with her family for decades. I mean, that's crazy stuff. So creating hope is really what this is about. And, so in order to do that, we have to provide very practical tools. So we support farmer trainings in communities so that they understand what quality really means. And this is a cut test. So we can cut a cocoa bean in half and tell you if it's a good bean or not. There's other factors, but that's a good starting point. Farmers don't know most farmers, not all for sure, but these farmers did not know, and many that I've run into in Africa, do not know what good quality cocoa looks like. So how can they produce something that they have no idea what the value is? There's no transparency in their supply chain. And so when we actually meet families, one of the first questions that I ask is, what do you pay it for? Do you know what it's being sold for in the market? Do you know what companies like Theo or chocolate makers are paying for that cocoa? And so there's, yes, the digital divide is vast, but that can close. But there's also something about doing good business that Debra mentioned, where you're honest, you're transparent, and we know that our future is linked to the future of this cocoa farmer. We know that if he's not healthy and viable and strong, and his children aren't well fed and looking forward to going to school, then we don't have a good supply and we don't have a good business. So, I had heard a long time ago that enlightenment without engagement is dead spirituality. And that's how we actually try to behave. It's a very spiritual thing for me, and that sounds kind of high-minded maybe, but truthfully, it's really more about doing something that I love to do, that we love to do. And the money's the fuel. The money just fuels it, but it's about doing something that you love and understanding that we are all connected. I'm connected to this farmer in Tanzania, and so are you, because you're eating chocolate that he might have grown. And so we're all related in that way. And so when we understand that our interrelationship is really at the heart of our survival, then that can be fun. Let's let's enjoy some good chocolate. Let's get to know each other a little bit. Let's ask good hard questions. And let's feel good about doing things that are delicious and right for each other and the planet. So thank you very much. Thank you.